Btv-Chattogram, welcoming you to the English news from Btv-Chattogram. Let's begin with the headlines. Scrutiny of nomination papers for national polls completed. Appeals of rejected candidates start tomorrow to continue till January 9th. Newly appointed Chief Justice Zubair Rahman Chaudhary seeks cooperation to reduce a backlog of cases. Information and Broadcasting Advisor calls upon media to play role in strengthening campaign over referendum. Government to import food from countries available at low price, keeping politics out of trade, says food advisor. BNP leaders, activists and mass people pay homage at former Prime Minister Begum Khaleda Zia's grave. City Corporation organizes Dua Mahfil in Chattogram. US President Trump announces to run Venezuela after removing Nicolas Maduro. Country's vice president takes over as interim president. And Bangladesh Cricket Board announces 15-member squad for T20 World Cup. Viewers, those were the headlines. Now moving on to the details. The scrutiny of nomination papers by returning officers for the 13th parliamentary election will be completed today, while the Election Commission has also released the prescribed format for filing appeals against the acceptance or rejection of nomination papers. Appeals can be submitted from January 5th to January 9th until 5 p.m. The referendum and national polls is scheduled to be held on February 12th, 2026. Any candidate, bank, financial institution, government service provider, or an unauthorized representative of a candidate may file an appeal with the Election Commission against the acceptance or rejection of a nomination paper till January 9th, 2026 by 5 p.m. The appeal application must be filed with the Secretary of the EC Secretariat using the prescribed format. A total of 7 copies of the appeal must be submitted, including one original. The appeal must be submitted at the designated booth of the relevant Regional Appeal Acceptance Center of the Election Commission. To receive a copy of the decision or verdict, an application must be submitted using the prescribed form. The Election Commission will be disposed of appeals submitted against the acceptance or rejection of nomination papers between January 10th and January 18th, 2026. Registered political parties, their nominated candidates, independent candidates, any other representatives on their behalf, and government benefit recipients must follow the Code of Conduct for political parties and candidates in parliamentary elections 2025. Meanwhile, on the last day of scrutiny of nomination papers of candidates for the 13th National Parliament election in Chattogram, the nomination papers of 44 candidates in 7 parliamentary constituencies have been declared valid. The candidates and their nominated representatives were present during the scrutiny of nomination papers at the Chattogram Divisional Commissioner's Office and the Deputy Commissioner's Office. Of these, the candidacies of 7 candidates in Chattogram 16 constituency, 3 candidates in Chattogram 15 constituency, 7 candidates in Chattogram 13, 6 candidates in Chattogram 14 constituency, 7 candidates in Chattogram 8 constituencies, 8 candidates in Chattogram 9 constituency and 6 candidates in Chattogram 10 constituency were declared valid. In addition, the nomination papers of 14 candidates in 7 parliamentary constituencies were cancelled. The newly appointed Chief Justice Zubair Rahman Chaudhary has stated that the Supreme Court administration will work to reduce case backlogs through technological development and its effective use. He also sought everyone's cooperation in this effort. He made these remarks this morning at the reception organized in his honor by the Supreme Court Lawyers Association and the Attorney General's office, held in courtroom number 1 of the Appellate Division. Judges of the Appellate and High Court divisions of the Supreme Court as well as Supreme Court lawyers were present at the reception. The Chief Justice said that the scrutiny and access to justice of judges, lawyers, and litigants who come to the Supreme Court seeking fair judgment will be ensured. The next hearing on the framing of formal charges against Anisul Haq and Salman F. Rahman on 5 charges, including imposing curfew during the July 24 uprising and holding meeting with businessmen at Gonum Habun, will be held on January 6th. At the International Crimes Tribunal 1, the defendant's lawyer Mansurul Haq Chaudhary held a hearing today. Earlier, the state's hearing on this matter ended on December 22nd. In addition, at the same tribunal, the state's hearing on the framing of formal charges in the case filed against former Army officer Ziaul Hassan on charges of more than 100 disappearances, torture, and murders during the decade and a half rule of the fallen Al Malik government ended today. The next hearing will begin on January 8th. Today, the tribunal took testimony in the murder case of 2 people, including the shooting of Amir Hussain, who was hanging from the cornice in Rampura in the capital during the July uprising. Meanwhile, at Tribunal 2, the investigation officer is being quizzed in the murder case of 7 persons, including the burning of 6 bodies in Ashrulia of Shavar. The defense lawyers quizzed investigation officer Jani Alam for the second day. In the morning, 12 accused arrested in these cases were presented before the tribunal. Information and Broadcasting Advisor said that Rizwana Hassan today said a conducive environment for a free and fair election prevails in the country. But a group is attempting to create an alternative narrative by citing law and order concerns or claiming the absence of an electoral atmosphere. She made the remarks while responding to journalists' questions at a view exchange meeting organized by the Secretariat Reporters Forum at the Secretariat. Mentioning that only a month remains, the advisor said the government is working to finalize the Broadcasting Ordinance and the Media Commission. Both would help ensure journalist protection, she added. Rizwana Hassan urged the media to play an active role in strengthening publicity and awareness campaigns related to the referendum. Responding to a question on the exclusion of Mustafizur Rahman from the IPL, the information advisor said it would have been better to keep sports confined to the sporting area. However, the legal aspect of the IPL broadcast issue is Bangladesh would be reviewed, she added. As of January 1, 2026, the country's total stock of food gains, including rice, wheat, and paddy, stands at 20,27,420 metric tons. Food advisor Ali Imam Mojumdar has stated that this is the highest food grain stock in the past 6 years. He made the remarks while speaking with journalists at the Secretariat about the country's food stock situation. Ali Imam Mojumdar said that in trade with India and other countries, political considerations are set aside and the government imports from wherever products are available at the lowest prices. The food advisor also noted that the current Imam harvest collection campaign is still ongoing and collection has already exceeded the targeted amount. As a result, the overall food situation in the country is currently satisfactory. Ali Imam Mujumdar further stated that all government food distribution programs are being carried out regularly and effectively, and the government will continue to take all necessary measures to ensure food security in the future. Despite dense fog and biting cold since early morning, people from all walks of life continue to visit the mausoleum of 3-time Prime Minister and BNP chairperson Begum Khaleda Zia at Zia Uddan in the capital's Sher Bangla Nagaur to pay their respect. The White Panel of Dhaka University teachers paid tribute by placing wreaths and offering Fatiha at the mausoleum this morning. After paying the homage, White Panel Convener Professor Dr. Morshid Hassan Khan said that Begum Khalida Zia had left the country, leaving it without a garden, adding that she bore no hatred or malice. Bangladesh Open University Vice Chancellor Professor Dr. ABM Obaidul Islam, National University Pro Vice Chancellor Professor Muhammad Lutfur Rahman, and other leaders of the White Panel were present on the occasion. Since morning, various social, cultural, and political organizations have been paying tribute at the grave of the late BNP chairperson, Begum Khalida Zia. The Chattogram City Corporation organized a Quran recitation, food distribution among the helpless and orphans, and a dua mahfil to pray for the soul of former Prime Minister and BNP chairperson Begum Khalida Zia. The program was organized at the city's Gazette Theory today. The helpless and orphans, city corporation officials, and employees and people from various professions participated in the program. City Mayor Dr. Shahadat Hussain said, Begum Khalida Zia has worked for the welfare of the country throughout her life. She has endured imprisonment and oppression, yet she did not leave the country. Now, international news. The U.S. will run Venezuela until a safe, proper, and judicious transition can be ensured, Donald Trump has said, after U.S. strikes led to the capture of country's President Nicolas Maduro. U.S. oil companies would also fix Venezuela's broken infrastructure and start making money from the country, the U.S. president said. The U.S. launched strikes on Venezuela on Saturday morning, in which Maduro and his wife, First Lady Cielo Flores, were captured by U.S. forces and removed from the country. Venezuela announced a state of national emergency and announced and denounced the military aggression, with the country's vice president saying Maduro is its only leader. Maduro and Flores were flown out of the capital, Caracas, on U.S. helicopter in the early hours of Saturday morning and taken aboard the USS Iwo Jima at an unknown location in the Caribbean Sea. They were later flown to the Guantanamo Bay U.S. Naval Base in Cuba before being transferred to another plane to head to New York State, and then flown by helicopter into New York City's Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi said Maduro and Flores had been indicted in the Southern District of New York. The pair have been charged with conspiracy to commit narco-terrorism and import cocaine, possession of machine guns and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the U.S. They will soon face the full wrath of American justice on American soil and American courts, Bondi wrote on X. Previously, Maduro has vehemently denied being a cartel leader and has accused the U.S. of using its war on drugs as an excuse to try to depose him and get its hand on Venezuela's vast oil reserves. Leaders around the world have responded with a mix of condemnation and support to the U.S. capture of Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro. Following a large-scale strike on Venezuela on Saturday, Maduro and his wife were captured by U.S. forces and removed from the country. The pair have been indicted on drug charges in New York. In an initial response, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer said his government would shed no tears for the end of Maduro's regime. Neighboring Latin American countries condemned the actions, as did Venezuela's long-term allies Russia and China. China said it was deeply shocked and strongly condemns the use of force against a sovereign country and its president. Russia accused the U.S. of committing an act of armed aggression. Iran, which is locked in its own dispute with Trump over his promise of intervention in its country, called the strikes a flagrant violation of the country's national sovereignty. Many Latin American leaders condemned the U.S. actions. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva wrote on X that the actions cross an unacceptable line, adding that attacking countries in flagrant violation of international law is the first step toward a world of violence, chaos, and instability. Colombian President Gustavo Petro called the strikes an assault on the sovereignty of Latin America, while Chile's President Gabriel Boric expressed concern and condemnation and called for a peaceful solution to the serious crisis affecting the country. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel accused the U.S. of a criminal attack, while Uruguay said in an official statement that it was monitoring.